are through to the finals of the Cricket World Cup 2023. This has been the crux of this podcast. The reason why we started this podcast was the hope that India would get the World Cup. And we are only one game away from that. So, woohoo, Team India. And welcome to the Common Fan Podcast. We're here to discuss a cracker of a game that was the semi-final between India and New Zealand yesterday. There were moments in the game where it looked like the ghost of 2019, the ghost of 2003. They might all come back and bite us in the behinds. But that was not to be, and Team India prevailed. The final scoreline does not read or give any hint of it being a close clash between the two teams. But those who watched the game absolutely know that this was closer than the scorecard would care to admit. Hello and welcome to the Common Fan Podcast and show. I have with me the usual suspects, Prasanna, Kovalam, Ritvik, Shekhar, and Manan, Puri. We'll get PK's thoughts first because his team's got a big game today. So let's go to the fake Australian, Prasanna Kovalam, and get his thoughts on the semi-final.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Good morning, everyone in India. And I want to recognize traditional owners of land and pay my gratitude for allowing many of us India fans to watch the game last night. And what a game it was. To quote the former coach of India, in the end, cricket was the winner. And, India was also the winner, and by a big margin too. I won't say anything about Virat's 50th or Shreyas's fourth. I will leave Ritvik, Manan, and yourself to elaborate more on that. But Shami, what a player! What a fantastic player! 23 wickets, the third five, but in 5 games, just 5 games. Remember, he wasn't playing from the start, and his seam position, just fantastic, right? Just absolutely fantastic. Gun barrel straight. And what does that do? That means that the ball just doesn't talk. It sings like a Rafi Lata duet. That's what it does. And that's what won us the game. India were made to work for it. This is the one game where India was actually made to work for the win, right? And me, we were all talking about it on the WhatsApp groups last night. We were getting scared, especially when it was 200 to go in 20. We were shitting ourselves. But Mitchell and Williamson nearly brought them home. New Zealand are nice guys on and off the field, but they will always bring their A game to a contest. You never just brush them aside because they're nice guys and they'll applaud you. They will have you by the throat and they will take it if they need to. So that's what my thoughts are. We'll get to the Australia-South Africa one later, but Ritvik, g'day and what a night.
Oh yes, terrific game indeed. And if there were any doubts about who India's MVP in this World Cup has been, then Shami removed those doubts yesterday. And while we were all rightfully cheering for Virat Kohli's big moment, the 50th ODI 100, Shami broke a few records as well. So to start with, this was the best ever bowling performance in a World Cup knockout, beating Gary Gilmore's 6 for 14 that he took in 1975. And Gary Gilmore was a freak himself. He had a 6 for and a 5 for 6 for in the semi-final and 5 for in the final, and after which he hardly played any cricket. Shami has also been the fastest to get to 50 World Cup wickets, and I think he has got a few more up his sleeve in the final. And batting-wise, I think it was a performance as complete as it could be. Rohit's belligerence, as usual. Nasir Hussain spoke about it yesterday. He said that while Kohli and Daya got the runs, the change in attitude this World Cup has been brought by Rohit, and he should get credit for that. And somebody posted a very interesting stat that while Rohit had 5 500s in the last World Cup, he has had 6 40s and 80s in this World Cup. And probably that's a better badge that he would like to wear on his chest. And at the risk of wreaking some controversy, I think Virat still had his eyes on the 100 yesterday. And he took his own sweet time to get from 80 to 100, around 20-25 odd balls, when India were 250 for 1 by the 35th over. And yesterday when Williamson and Mitchell were going all guns blazing, I was thinking that if that small period where Kohli could have got 10-15 more runs, is that going to cost us in the end? Any thoughts on that, Manan?
No, for a change, I don't think so. Because I knew, I looked at the stats that time around. But Mitchell Santner was bowling then, and he was getting a lot of purchase from the wicket. You look at it, 8 and over is what we eventually got, and this guy, got a 10-50 for no loss in about 10 overs. And last over, he almost got like 2 or 3 wickets the way he was bowling. So I wouldn't, criticize Kohli on this one at least, and especially because of the kind of role he was playing, right? Mm, Shreyas was the aggressor. Shubman became the aggressor when he was batting with Kohli, and then finally, Kohli was playing that role of sheet anchor and continuing with the innings, and eventually he ended up with a strike rate of I think 120 or so. So no issues around that. Apart from that, of course, um, we've talked in the podcast about Shreyas not performing in the first 6 games, and Ritvik, you mentioned about Rohit's leadership. Apart from his batting, I think he backed this 11 or the rest of the 10 players throughout the competition. We said, once Pandya comes back, Sky should be in, Shreyas should be out and whatnot. The guy persisted with him, and we have got the results. Last 4 games, he's amassed 50 plus runs, and yesterday he was just brilliant. He did not let the momentum slip. And then, of course, KL Rahul partnership that they had was just so brilliant. Overall, another MS this time around won us the game. Uh, Although it was not as close as we thought it would be, but there was a time when, to quote our former coach, dash dash मुंह में आ गए थे when because Williamson, and again, his mental fortitude and whatnot, we thought, okay, they might just take us home or take them home, sorry. But eventually, Shami came to the fore. I think another shout out to the New Zealand team, the way they play their cricket in general. They come in, do their business, go out, no complaints, no complaint about the pitches, the toss, any music playing and whatnot, or the light show and anything else. You would not see a single New Zealand player complaining about any loss. They just take it, chin up, go back and perform. And that's how it should be.
Absolutely, Manan.
So
I
sorry,
also
Vijay, just to interrupt you because I could resist myself because Manan mentioned stats from Kohli's innings. So when Kohli moved from 80 to 100, his strike rate was roughly around 100. The last 13 runs that he scored at a strike rate of 200. So there was a clear difference in the way he was batting after he got to the magical 3-figure mark.
Oh, come on, Ritvik. That's the way anybody builds a one-day international innings. And Kohli himself said that his role was to hang in there till the late overs and then, go for glory while others rallied around him. And that is exactly what's been happening in the previous games as well. I mean, have we forgotten how one days work? Especially since the run rates have gone up. Come on, I think it's an unfair expectation of Kohli. And I completely agree with Manan about Santner bowling a pretty decent spell around then. So, and for a change, I actually thought Kohli didn't quite lose his, strike rate from the 80s to the 100. He was pretty much going at about the same rate that he was going from, say, his 50 to his 80. Speaking of balls and mouths, there has been a lot of talk about the pitch not being in New Zealand's favor, or BCCI, BCCI controlling the way the pitch was laid out, or getting to choose the pitch that the game was getting played on by mouths that typically you hear a lot of noise from, but not a lot of substance from the Australian media, the English media, Fox Sports, and so on. So what are your thoughts on that, guys? Because I think that's complete bullshit. I concur with the legendary Little Master, the OG Little Master Gavaskar, who on air went on to call these people morons yesterday, and rightly so. I think it's bullshit because two teams play a game and they play on the same pitch. It shouldn't matter what the conditions are. That is exactly why you travel all the way from your home countries, from the comfort of your bubble lives, to a country like India, where every single city throws up a different kind of soil, a different kind of cultural experience. That is exactly what India is all about. So when you're touring a country like India, you should expect that diversity reflected in the nature of the game that you're playing, in the soil, in the pitch as well. And you're not changing. They're not bringing a drop-in pitch in the innings break and giving you a different condition to play on when you're batting, when your team's batting. It's the exact same pitch. So if your game can't adapt to it, then you perish. That's what sports all about. We don't complain when you give us grassy tops on English conditions, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
See, okay, honestly, guys, there has been a shift in trend. No home country won the World Cup in the first 9 World Cups. But the last 3 World Cups have been won by the home country. India started that. India broke a jinx and won that in 2011. Australia were a very strong team in 2015. England, I honestly believe they actually made a team for that particular tournament which was happening in their country, and they ended up winning it well almost. India may have done something very similar this time. They had 4 years to prepare for a World Cup which was happening in home conditions, and it's all fair, right? You get that little bit of advantage when you play in your home conditions. But that said, is India really a home condition exclusively for the Indian team? Half the other teams have been playing the IPL for the last n number of years, and they are all familiar with the crowds, with the atmosphere, the food, the pitches, and all that. So I don't think India is really an alien country for any of these touring teams. That said, if there was something unfair which BCCI did yesterday, then that was to bring Rajnikant into the stadium. That was a supernatural power that BCCI had. They exercised it. It was a Brahmastra that they unleashed yesterday in the semi-final, because they knew that we are meeting our nemesis, New Zealand, early in the knockout stage, and probably that's what gave us an unfair advantage.
Speaking of Rajnikant being there, I think the biggest star in the crowd was Jay Shah, because he had Sachin Tendulkar, David Beckham, Rajnikant, of course, and all of the lot of superstars sitting with him for 15-20 minutes while the camera panned on him and then they moved out. Jay Shah was the only constant, right? And I think on the criticism around pitches and all that, yeah, I mean, see, Ritvik, you said a lot of logical things here. I think the people who are criticizing it, they're not looking at logic. They're just looking at Twitter engagement. And thanks to Elon Musk, Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Sikandar Azam, Hassan Raza, whoever it is, they're just minting monetization money. And it's very, very easy to rile up desi hardcore cricket fans by just saying such things. The toss was, the coin was thrown away so that nobody knows what side it was on, so that we could win. The pitch changes. What else? Hassan Raza, obviously quotes a lot of bullshit. So clearly, I think it's just engagement farming. And again, in general, it's if we had to change the pitch, we'll probably make it slightly more pacey, because that has been our strength throughout. We will not make it a flattish, slow turner, because Mitchell Santner,
Obviously, yeah,
will not do that,
couldn't
right?
agree more.
But again, they just need engagement, and that's what they'll continue to do. They'll probably start talking about Ahmedabad pitch already, because now that India is in the final, they'll prepare such pitch. And speaking of BCCI pulling out the guns, I think the biggest gun that we have is still not unleashed. I will see, or we will see the hometown hero, Mr. Narendra Modi, in the final. And of course, we all know what
Is he in the
happens
playing
next.
11?
He might just be. You never know.
So honestly, if India wins the World Cup, then we may very well expect Mr. Modi to be there to lift the trophy. To hand over the trophy.
Boys, you have to still live in the country, remember.
Yes, does the World Cup have like his sticker on it? I'm sure it should. I mean, like every other.
If the match was happening in maybe Tamil Nadu or Chennai few years back, then probably the World Cup would have a certain person sticker and picture on it.
We're playing the final at a stadium that's named after Mr. Modi. So
yeah, that's it.
Speaking of Caribbean cricket, I mean that Twitter account, they've been engagement farming, like Manan, you rightly said, but it's a bit ironic considering they are the other team that's been unbeaten this World Cup by virtue of not playing a single game and not qualifying.
Yeah, now look, I mean, I'm just going to come in with a bit, and I've got my stuff to say about the pitch. But yeah, Carib cricket, respect to India, against all odds, they've made the World Cup final. All they needed was a board that governs world cricket, unlimited finances and resources, a home World Cup, and the ability to pick what pitch they played on in the semi-final.
That sounds like their Christmas wish list, right?
They're not holding back. But, it also helps that India gets to play good enough cricket to not get to a stage where they needed to win against Scotland and then subsequently lose to Scotland and therefore not play the Cricket World Cup. Look, I think all of us have nothing but the greatest regards for the West Indies. When Sir Vivian Isaac Richards came onto the commentary box yesterday, all of us, we were down the Edinburgh pub. All of us would just think, and none of us were probably born around that time, but we were just, talking about him as if we'd seen him play. But this engagement farming, as you say, Manan, it's definitely there, and pissing off people sells a lot. Look, I actually have a differing opinion from all of you. I mean, look, not that we're expecting Christmas cards or Diwali sweets from the BCCI, and once again, happy Diwali to everyone. But just when you thought they could get out of the way and let cricket do the talking, they do this. Now, the pitch played true. It played well. There was no gremlins in the pitch or anything like that. But for a World Cup semi-final, when you've got a fresh bit of grass laid right next to it, you'd rather use that than something that's having played 200 overs. Now, what would it have done? As Vijay, you and I talked about, probably nothing, like 10, 15 minutes or maybe 10 overs. But even that 10 overs of a Trent Bolt swinging it in or a Tim Southee swinging it in, it would have been great to watch. It could have, I wouldn't say it would have changed the nature of the score, but it would have been fun to watch. Now, that's just what I'm talking about. Like, it's a semi-final. These small little things, they could be avoided. But what we witnessed was a spectacle of cricket, right? And it was a fantastic game rather than have this. But anyone who talks about pitch doctoring really needs to speak to a therapist or get onto Medicare to speak to a psychologist.
Those who have to find ways to and find excuses, they will do that. If not the pitch this time around, they'll probably say the DJ plays the music after every delivery and our concentration goes for a toss. It could be anything. They just have to complain. Right.
Speaking of pitches and DJs and tosses, we've got another interesting game coming up today, the second semi-final at Eden Gardens, which is also one of those pitches where I think the team batting first will have a distinct advantage. So it remains to be seen. Now, there's been a lot of banter from the Australians about how South Africans are chokers. I saw Mr. Pat Cummins on a podcast recently also mention that the South Africans would themselves know the record and so on. But the record indicates that South Africa haven't actually lost a game to Australia since 2011 or something, like in a really long time. So it's going to be really interesting because the South Africans, this batch of South Africans, I don't think they're similar to this batch of Indian cricketers they were pretty young when their respective traumas happened in World Cups. So I feel like they're going to be they're going to come out all guns blazing in the semi-final against Australia. And actually, the records are in their favor so far. They've been the better team throughout this World Cup, and even in the league stage, they've bested Australia. They've not. It wasn't even a close game. They basically routed Australia. So, I mean, you've got your Maxwells, you've got your Smiths, you've got your Labuschagne and your Travis Heads. But what South Africa's got is a genuine pace attack and some top batting all the way to the middle order. So I am actually placing my bets on South Africa for this final. What are your thoughts, Manan?
I think it is Australia's game to lose, to my mind. The pressure will be on South Africans, and Australia have been in red hot form in the past few games. Daddy hundreds by Marsh and of course Maxwell. The bowling is doing well. So, and of course the pressure of a semi-final, which always gets to the South Africans. I think it's Australia's game to lose, both from a performance standpoint and from a weather standpoint as well. In case both the days it's washed out, then South Africa go through. So for a change, rain might be in their favor, but for now, I think Australia are the favorites for me. And I would now want the 2003 Badla. That Badla we can have. I don't think 2019 will ever be healed, but 2003 can. So I want Australia to get in, and then we beat them comprehensively, hopefully, and much to the dismay of Prasanna, Australia might be in the final.
Look, now, as you all say, and as our friend Amit told me yesterday at the Edinburgh, I'm a bit hard on the Australians, all right? So let's do one thing. And let's stare at the stats. And at this time, sorry to steal your thunder, Ritvik, okay? As a team, Australia has scored 7 centuries, 8 half centuries, 265 boundaries, and 89 sixes. India in the same tournament has also scored 7 centuries, but it scored 16 half centuries, 21 more boundaries, and 3 more sixes. most importantly, only 4 India batters across the 9 games have scored a duck. For that number, for Australia, that number is 9. So no, I don't think Australia is rampaging and looking ominous as some of the media here seem to say, right? That being said, if the game does go ahead and it's not washed out, Australia start as favourites. And if Australia win the toss, I would dare say it'd be an Australia-India final. So Ritvik, look, 1, how was my stats knowledge? And 2, what are your thoughts?
Well, all that I heard in that barrage of stats for centuries, half centuries, and all that, and that's what happens when you cheer for a country that's obsessed with breaking Sachin Tendulkar's record of centuries, and that's all that you have been focusing on. So you see, that's what I've been saying all this while, ever since the World Cup started. That suddenly we have become obsessed with getting to that 3-figure mark, and that shows on the common fan as well. That said, my bet is on Australia. Just going by the way they played in the last 2 matches, Daddy hundreds by Maxwell and Mishmash. I think Australians have tasted blood, and there is nobody more dangerous than Australia in knockouts of a World Cup. Yes, very rightly, as Vijay said, South Africa has had the upper hand in the last few years. They've won. I read somewhere they have won 15 of the last 18 games that they have played against Australia. And the only way for South Africa to win is to bat first and to get to a 370, 380 odd score. Otherwise, if South Africa has to chase, the contrast in their form has shown us that they are really poor chasers. If they have to chase, they will end up losing. Otherwise, we are all gearing for a repeat of the 2003 World Cup final.
Do you guys remember 1999? Of course, we've got to talk about 1999. Alan, bloody Donald.
On that one, I know, people say it was Donald who was at fault. If you looked at the footage closely, it was Klusner who ran. There was not a run there on that ball. There were 3 more deliveries or 2 more deliveries to go. They had to just score a single. Donald just backed him up. Yeah, he sacrificed his wicket because he had no choice, around that. But it was Klusner. It was his call. Yes, Donald should have run. Probably he would not have made it because it was that close. So, contrary to popular belief, I think it was Klusner who had a brain fade after just almost seeing them through.
So there's this interview by Klusner that I was reading yesterday, which was about that particular game, and an old interview. And in the end, the guy asked him that, "Do you watch that clip? And have you ever seen that clip?" He said, "I can't avoid it because it's always there on social media. But I don't need to watch that movie because I already made that movie." That's a scar that has been left on that generation of South African cricketers forever.
Yeah.
Right. So let's pick our sides. I'm picking South Africa for today's semi-final. How about you guys? Manan.
Australia.
South Africa if they bat first, else Australia.
No ifs and buts, man. Pick up one side, please.
All right, Australia.
Right. So it's 3-1. All right. Let's see. We'll convene at the end of this match, and we'll see what the situation is like, who India's facing against.
On a separate note, going back to the India-New Zealand game, because the media and everybody was so obsessed with the fact that it was the 2019 ka badla, now they'll probably not show the Dhoni run out as much as they have been showing in the past 4 years. That's the only silver lining that has come out of it.
One of the many silver linings.
Right. I mean, these are typically things. These are typically things that only hardcore fans of the game get affected by and remember, because these have become our core memories. Be it that opening Zahir Khan over in the final in 2003, or that close run out, in 2019 in that semi-final.
1996 jumping from Eden, Sachin's jumping.
Exactly, right. So, I mean, these are the things that hardcore cricket fans remember, and this show is absolutely for you, the hardcore cricket fan, the common fan. So we have a very interesting thing coming up for you guys. Were you the kind that snuck off to the bedroom to watch a match, disappointing your parents and your girlfriend or spouse? Did you even have a girlfriend back then because you were devoted to cricket all the time? Do you have a girlfriend now? Was Valentine's Day a time for you to book tickets for the India versus Pakistan game during the World Cup in 2015?
It was.
If these are the kind of things that you've done, did you try to steal your neighbor's cable TV because you wanted to desperately watch Mandra Bedi host the 2003 World Cup, and in the process, when you're trying to cut the wire, send a scissor right through your finger, and it came out on the other side, and you had like a math exam in 2 days? If you've got experiences like these, by the way, that was me. If you've got experiences like these, we would like to hear from you. Email us at thecommonfan91@gmail.com. We couldn't get thecommonfan@gmail.com because somebody already took it, so we just put a random 91 at the end of it. So
Dude, it's not random. The
No,
91
not
is
random.
not random. That's what Dhoni scored in the 2011 World Cup final.
Oh my! Are you even a fan, Vijay? Are you even
Shit,
a fan?
man.
I thought that was
And-
Ritvik's birthday. Yeah.
Really?
And no, but why didn't we choose 97? Because 91 is more
We
than
don't choose
97.
97 because 91 was, guys, a 91 not out has the potential to be anything, whereas a 97 out is just a 97 out.
Remember, it's a team game.
Right, coming back to what I was saying, if you have such experiences where you have given up large chunks of your life devoted to the sport, we would like to hear from you, and we would like to invite you on the podcast. So write to us at thecommonfan91@gmail.com, and with the title Voice of Fans. If you don't remember Voice of Fans, that's fine. Just write to us and we'll feature you. We're kind of desperate that way. All right. It's been yet another episode of the Common Fan Show / podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the end of the second semi-final. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.